Hello and welcome to Living with Invisible Disabilities. I'm Shawnette Good. In this interview series, we will be exploring the challenges, misconceptions, and successes of living with various types of disabilities. Today, we have Michelle Steiner with us. Hi, Michelle. So thankful to have you today.
Oh, thank you, Shawnette, for having me on today.
Michelle is going to be sharing with us something that I'm not even aware of, which is dyscalculia and how it affects her in her daily life. But there's a whole lot more to Michelle than just dyscalculia. So we're going to first ask a couple of getting to know you questions. So you ready for this, Michelle?
I'm ready.
So we'll start out with the hardest one. Everyone knows Michelle is blank, fill in the blank.
Everyone knows that I am definitely someone who loves to read and write, and I love flowers and butterflies. So yeah.
Well, we are going to get along great. One thing you would learn to love to do?
I would love to learn how to grow flowers on a trellis. We have grown like a lot of things on our front porch and containers and the other gardening, but we have a beautiful pergola in the backyard and we just can't seem to get the flowers to grow on there.
If you were given the opportunity right now, no family responsibilities, no job responsibilities, you can travel anywhere in the world, where are you going to
go? I would really like to go to Las Vegas. There's a conference that I was asked to speak at, and we virtually, but yeah, it would be nice to go and speak there in person and that sort of thing.
That is great. And what is the conference related to? Do you mind me asking?
Sure. It is an advocacy conference for individuals with intellectual disabilities.
Well, it's always great to be invited, whether you can make it or not, right?
Exactly. Definitely.
Okay. Well, that's a future goal we can certainly work towards.
Right.
So going back a little ways in time, just yesterday or so, what was your favorite subject in school?
I always liked English and I always liked reading class.
I saw that one coming. Okay. What about the least favorite? I can just about guess what that one's going to be.
Oh, that was math, definitely.
Today, we're going to focus a little bit on living with dyscalculia. So if you could start off by helping me pronounce and define exactly what dyscalculia is.
Sure. Some people call it dyscalculia, other ones call it dyscalculia. It is the math learning disability. And what that does is that affects how I don't understand how numbers work. I'm really not great on things like estimating how much I'm spending at the store or how much money I need. Things like I'm unable to read the face of a clock. Some other parts of the disability that I have too. I'm not able to drive, and that's my visual perception, and it's not in my eyes, it's in my brain, and that's a typical, with just trying to coordinate everything together, that can be difficult. It affects my eye-hand coordination. So, and a lot of people, when they hear about learning disabilities, we think a lot about dyslexia, which is the reading disability. And not a lot of people are aware that some people really struggle with math.
Well, I'm glad that we're definitely making some strides towards bringing more awareness to this. When did you get this diagnosis?
I got the diagnosis of having a learning disability in kindergarten. It wasn't a specific learning disability per se. I was my parents' first child. And when I went into preschool, my teacher thought something was going on, but my parents thought, well, she'll catch up. And they sent me to kindergarten. And I really struggled with dot-to-dot pages. I struggled with writing my name, tying my shoes, and of course, math. That was the thing that was really the prominent struggle for me. And they diagnosed me at the end of kindergarten. And the next year I had to repeat kindergarten and I had to go to a new school. And I also began to receive specialty services at that new school.
Did the specialty services really make a difference?
Well, they did in the reading a lot. There was a little bit I did struggle with, like reading comprehension in the beginning. The math, we really didn't make it. It's always going to be a struggle, but at least we were able to go through school the accommodations they used was also really helpful, because eventually, because I could read and I could write, they put me in regular ed science and social studies, and I was in all general ed classes except for math, and I had a resource room period. And those did help. And a lot of what they did whenever I was in school, that helped me in college and just throughout my life.
So was it somewhat of a comfort as you grew older to know that this wasn't a lack of trying on your part, that this is something that you struggled with, that many other people struggle with, and that it wasn't that you weren't giving your best?
Exactly. And that's something with my parents. They explained it from the time I was a young child, that I had a learning disability. I learned differently. They didn't give up on me. They didn't expect perfect grades. We knew I wasn't going to be a mathematician, but that was the big thing. I had to go in, I had to try, and I had to at least put forth the effort. And that was a process too, just having that confidence to develop. But eventually that was a real comfort with having that.
Well, it sounds you were very blessed with having parents that supported you and encouraged you.
Oh, definitely.
You say that you're a writer and a reader, but even reading was a struggle at first. And I can imagine with the visual perception, is that something that you just over time learned to accommodate for?
Oh, definitely. One of the things, I had the love for reading. So my parents would read to me when I was little. I remember my dad especially would read me stories at night. So I love that. And that's one of the things the teachers really noticed. They said that I had, a real expressive reading voice, because I really loved that. So that was a real help was learning how to do that. It was also learning what the important information was about the text too. And I can remember I had a peer, I think it was elementary school, and he said, well, if Michelle's such a good reader, why is she in here with us? And the teacher said, well, it's just to give her a little extra help. They wanted me to be able to have that really firm foundation, because they knew that math was going to be the struggle, but they knew that I could do the reading, and they just wanted me to have that really good foundation before I was placed in other classes. And I'm glad they did too.
Yeah, that really, I can imagine how that would be a confidence booster when you struggle in other areas.
Right.
How does dyscalculia affect your daily life now?
Well, it's really difficult for me when I'm at the store to know how much something's going to be with totaling items up. That's always really difficult for me. It's hard if we go out for dinner and I'm by myself and I have to do the tip. And I'll have to be pulling out the calculator or trying to do that. And that's another thing. Sometimes even having a calculator doesn't always really help it. And it's also tough. I'm not able to read the face of a clock. So I have my digital watch that I have with my Fitbit, which is helpful. I'm also, with having the visual perception and the dyscalculia, I can't tell my right from my left. And I struggle with eye-hand coordination. And that's one of the things when they tested me to see if I could drive, they said, well, the visual perception, but, we found out a lot of people that have a math disability do struggle with driving too. Some are able are able to find a way to around that too, or to be able to drive, but yeah, it just didn't work out for me.
Are there still some areas that even family and friends have trouble understanding why they're difficult?
Oh yeah, definitely. I will meet people, a lot of friends, and I'll say, well, I do have a math disability. Well, you've accomplished so much. You have a degree. How can you have a bachelor's degree? How can you have a math disability? Well, we have that, that sort of thing. Just sometimes the driving has been an issue too, where people couldn't understand, well, why can't you drive? I mean, wouldn't glasses help? And you have to explain, no, they wouldn't help very much. And they just think, well, you should be driving. And well, that might be, or somebody else that has one can't. So sometimes that's hard. And it's really hard when you can't see the disability too, for people to understand. I'll have people that will be like, well, you don't look like you're disabled.
And how do you respond to those people?
I usually try to just try to tell people, well, I may have a degree, but I still do have a disability. You may not be able to see the disability, but I have one. And there are things that I'm just simply not able to do. And this is what we're doing instead.
Good for you. So do you feel that it's important for you to share this message and let others know? Obviously, you wouldn't be here today if that wasn't the case.
Right.
So I guess why is it? It obviously is important to you. Why is it so important?
I think it's important for me to be able to show other people with disabilities that definitely they're not alone. I get a lot of people that'll connect and they'll say, I never thought that, I thought I was the only one who struggled with that. And then they'll be thanking me because I showed them, or through my story, they were able to see that, okay, another person does that. And I also think it breaks the stigma of what we think someone with a disability is like.
Covered a lot of them, but are there any other misconceptions around dyscalculia that you would like to address?
Yeah, so a lot of times people will think dyscalculia is something somebody grows out of, or I had a friend that was telling me there's this great adult education class that you could take, and we had to try to explain, okay, we've done a lot of that. It's not going to happen, or at least not in the package that a lot of people would think.
Did you have to seek any, or did you attempt to seek out any special services in college?
Yes, right before I went to college, I had to be tested to make sure I had a learning disability again. So I went through testing, and the psychiatrist told me, because my scores were so low, that I wouldn't likely go beyond a community college. And I had professors at that point that were, your job choices are going to be really limited because of your math. And I was starting to meet other people that were different, but there still was that stigma. Well, you have a learning disability. Why should you get this? That's an unfair advantage. And so I didn't get a lot of those specialty services, and my grades suffered really bad. And I remember I had a professor that said, well, let's try to get you at least extended test time. And we went back and we did that. And I didn't do well in the class, but I was able to go through and pass that class. And I graduated with my associate's degree, and I was able to move out on my own, and I worked in some childcare centers, and I just always wanted more for myself. And for financial reasons, when I moved back in with my parents and my job downsized, I went back to school, and I thought I just have to try. And I found a program that I liked at the university, and I did accommodations, and I advocated for myself. And it was so much easier when I followed through on what I needed to do. I made Dean's List for a semester. Grades improved, and I was able to graduate with a bachelor's degree.
That is amazing. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I hope our viewers hear what they hear is don't listen to the naysayers. You don't know until you try, right? And then push for those accommodations that you know you need. If they're available, you push to get those.
Right. And I think a lot of it, was the accommodations, but it was also going in with an understanding too. I couldn't go into a program that involved a lot of math, or a program that I've had people that said, well, why didn't you go out to become a certified teacher? And I was like, well, that's really difficult if you're not a great test taker and you have to pass a lot of tests. And it was a matter of finding that right program for me. And that's the thing for students that have disabilities. It's finding the right program that's a good fit for them, whether that's at a college or a technical school or something else. It's just finding that right program and the right accommodations for them.
I love that. Not everyone has to go to college to be successful, and there is something for everyone and every ability. So what a great story. So if you had to leave everyone with one message of hope, maybe there's someone who is their child is just now being diagnosed with dyscalculia, and maybe they've made it through their entire childhood or in an adulthood, or just now finding out the name to the struggles they've been having.
Well, what I would tell the person that has that is to find a different way to do things. It may not always start out as your original path, but just try to look for different ways to do things and not to give up on things that you want to do.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And I know this is going to provide great value to not just people with dyscalculia, but anyone who may be going through a struggle that those around them can't understand. And maybe they themselves don't understand it fully, but it doesn't mean that they can't move forward with success. So thank you. And if people want to follow your journey a little bit more, how can they do that?
You can find me at my blog, Michelle's Mission .blog. And you can also find me on Instagram at Michelle Steiner 7250. And I'm also on Facebook as well.
Well, great. And you can find us at Joshua's Voice at joshuasvoice.org, on Facebook as Joshua's Voice, Instagram as Voice of Compassion. And by the time that this is airing, you will also be able to find us on our YouTube channel, and that information will be below. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing today and being so open about your journey.
Oh, thank you for having me, Shawnette. I appreciate it.
And thank you, viewers, for watching and listening. And let's go out there and support one another.